Hello, everybody, and welcome to the long-awaited Ninjagocast for Season 13, Master of the Mount. I am your Sensei, Sensei Wolf.
I'm Eljay.
I'm Meso.
And do we have a treat for you today? I'm sure we are all aware of the circumstance of Season 13, not only it being awesome, but also the fact that
why aren't you welcoming us to the dojo?
Oh. You guys are all welcome to the dojo. We've got important matters to discuss.
It's too late.
Anyway.
I don't feel welcome.
Oh, come on.
The welcome was delayed, so I don't feel welcome. Sorry.
Welcome to Ninjago.
I want my refund on this dojo appearance.
Oh my gosh. Let me have this moment. Let me have this moment.
I mean, let me have my refund.
Before you have any moment, we should have some plugs.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Before we talk about Ninjago, you talk about Bionicle. Right?
Okay, thank you. So a few things. First of all, thank you for joining us. If you want to join in on any interesting conversations, head on over to the TTV message boards at board.ttvchannel.com. You need to be 13 years or older, and you can have a good time there as long as you read the rules. And, of course, follow them. A lot of good stuff's happening there right now. We have LEGO author Greg Farshty answering fan questions, as well as the Bionicle canonization contest that's going on for Toa Hellrex. We're in the art portion right now, and I think we've only got about 10 more days left for the entry period there. So definitely go check that out. Additionally, patreon.com/ttpchannel. Lowest $1 a month. You can join our Discord server, as well as our Minecraft server with the islands of Matanui and Voyanui, with more to come. Additionally, Twitter, at the Eljay Johnson, at Messinac, at the TTV channel, and I'm going to be honest, that was a completely random order, and I don't even know what yours is, Hayley.
Nice.
What is your Twitter handle? I don't know it.
Oh, honestly, I don't even know myself. It's either at I of the Wolf or at private duck call, but you can
Duck
find
call.
me.
I think it's the duck call. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's private.
Look at what's the code.
I'll go ahead and put that up. That's
proof in Ninjago season 13 was 100%
That's
Ninjagocast pandering. Edgy Skullboy story recap guy. Cool.
That's so perfect.
That was
have you been
funny.
Saving that, Dakota? Have you been saving that?
That's brilliant.
That's really fun.
Also in the chat, we have one Tommy Andresen.
Yes.
Says, hi
Welcome,
all.
Tommy.
I'll be here for a few questions if the TTV crowd wants to direct a few my way, but mostly I'll just be here to listen and learn. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
We're
honored to have you.
I think you will walk away from this happier than your usual fan.
Yes.
Of listening.
Yes. Don't you worry. So,
okay.
The Cat's Out of the Bag season 13 came out in record time. All 16 episodes in less than a week, which we have never seen before in Ninjago's history. So, in our attempt to try to have a Ninjago cast discussion, we realized it wasn't possible in the middle of the episodes coming out. So we have Ninjago Cast Reacts. If you want to check out our reactions to each episode, it's kind of like a supplementary for not having a discussion. However, that hopefully won't be the case for following seasons. We will continue our discussion as episodes come out, because we don't want to have a season-long discussion. It's not preferable. However, I do think we will keep the reactions if you all want them.
Yeah,
I think it was pretty popular. So if you guys are down, we will continue doing reactions for future seasons.
I'm down. I just wouldn't expect any grandiose reactions out of me, because every single one of those was recorded with me having been awake for like 9 minutes. So I was still processing, like, oh gosh, what's going on? Oh, bright lights. Oh, I'm so tired.
Bright lights, big city.
Big.
So,
but yeah. So I said this a few episodes ago for Ninjago Cast. I want to apologize for what I said, and I'm going to say it here now. Coal season Cole has a season. Oh my gosh.
You have earned this right. I will let you have this
I'm going to
jubilation.
strip it from Marsha the Oni. I'm going to strip it right out of that. And now I can proudly say Cole has a season. And not only does he have a season, it's one of the best seasons Ninjago has ever put in front of us.
Now,
Bold.
I know everyone would expect this from her, but you're going to be surprised by this conversation.
I think what you might not expect it from is people others.
Yeah, so you all expected me to like it. You guys are probably here to see what Tyler and LJ thought of it.
Hello.
So, should we do the recaps first, or do you want to go ahead and say what your broad opinion?
I'll briefly say, just for people looking like for a short take right at the start, there are only 2 Ninjago seasons that rival this for me, and it's Skybound and Sons of Garmadon. Those are the only 2 that come close. I see a lot of people who say Hunted. Maybe I would like Hunted more if I wasn't bored by 50% of it. I literally can't even remember the Iron Baron people. Like they just go in and out. I just remember Fate. So it's gonna come up to like a battle in the top 3 between Skybound, Sons of Garmadon, and Master of the Mountain, and there's a very strong case for it being my favorite. I don't know if it will end up being so. We'll have to figure through the realm of discussion. Mm-hmm. But yeah, cynical Meso has very few actual complaints this go round. I do have some, which I will get into. Don't worry. But overall, big old thumbs up from me.
Thank you, Tyler. LJ?
No, I'm going to clickbait people. I'm not going to tell my opinion still after the recap.
That's fair.
You're just excited for your recap, aren't you?
More or less.
Stay tuned for LJ's reactions. Number 3 may shock you.
Okay. All right, listen here.
So, whew.
Good luck recapping a whole season.
We got an entire season of recap from LJ. Sit back, relax.
Go get your drink. Crack open a cold one.
Yeah.
And LJ, take it away. What happened in Master of the Mountain?
A lot of things. Sorry, was I supposed to elaborate? You answered your question. Okay. All right, everyone. So go ahead and sit down. All right. Episode 1, Shintaro. Woo, feeling like this. Ninja invitation to go to city with princess for birthday. And so they go to city. And then dire bats attack. And they're like, ah! But then they saved. And they go, ah! Episode 2, Into the Dark.
You got a whole episode. I'm impressed.
Are you kidding me? I could have done the entire thing. Easily. I can do this whole season like that, I assure you, but I won't. Alright, so the ninja the season starts off. Wu is in a funk, though he would disagree with this, and the ninja are partially trying to figure out why, when suddenly the mailman appears, and they get an invitation to the legendary city of Shintaro to celebrate Princess Vanya's birthday party. So they head on over there.
Never heard of before.
They head on over there. They meet everyone. Vanya is a ninja super fan with a heavy emphasis on Cole. And the ninja are like, all right, we're here. Let's go to sleep. So they try and go to sleep, and Cole gets attacked? I'm not really sure, by this weird purple goblin thing, who for some reason is wearing a locket with a photo of Cole's parents. The thing bounces. Cole tries to tell everyone. Nobody believes him, so him and Vanya head on down to the mines. And then they see all the people down there. Slavery is abound, and the Skull Sorcerer is in charge of things. He's the... Oh, wait, I totally forgot I needed to put up the slideshow. Ah, whoops. It's okay. It's all right.
It comes with pictures, don't worry.
There are pictures.
Bunch of pictures. It's only like highlights.
Yeah.
But it still ended up being 90 pictures.
Sorry. Thank you. So, Cole gets captured, and Vanya goes up to tell the other ninja and let them know what's going on. While he's captured, no, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. Ninja head on down. They get captured too. While they're captured, they learn the legend of Gilly/Millie, who wielded 2 blades, the Blades of Deliverance. And each species down here, the Munce and the Geckos.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. They believe that the other side took their sword, so they don't like each other. Eventually, the ninja all escape, and they escape with the tribes. Antics ensue during all of this, and they all get split up. So Janie and Lloyd go to the Munce Kingdom, where the queen falls in love with Jay. He's like, I want to meet you, my king. And Nia's like, nope. So they fight. Nia whoops the queen and subsequently becomes queen. And then Kai and Zane, captured by the Geckos. Long story short, Kai is the chancellor of the Geckos. So that's where we are now. Meanwhile, Cole is kind of just falling, I guess. He's gonna do this a lot.
Yes.
He's gonna do this a lot. So he's falling, he's saved, and then they meet with the king, who is the Skull Sorcerer, and then they're falling again. So at the bottom, they meet with a crew, a D&D crew. Fungus, Plunder, and Korgran. Who, along with their pet spider, Kyle. It was Kyle, right?
Adam.
Kyle.
I don't know where I got Kyle out of. No, I know exactly where I got Kyle out of, because that was the name of Eljay in the Jala series, which I haven't seen in like 5 years. I don't know why I thought about that.
Look at Sakota's picture. And then, like, antics ensue.
And then antics and so.
So, Adam, the spider. So this D&D party tells the ninja how they got there and how they essentially helped the Skull Sorcerer exist. So that's great. Thanks, guys. Meanwhile, we are rejoined throughout all of this by Wu. And Wu is like, you have to unlock Spinjitzu Burst. And Cole's like, Spinjitzu Burst? You've literally never mentioned that in like 13 seasons. And Wu's like, I know. I wasn't informed about Spinjitzu Burst until the marketing team informed me 2 years ago. So eventually, Cole unlocks not Spinjitzu Burst, but he gets a little better control over his powers. Antics ensue, they fight some things, and they make their way forward. Meanwhile, the Munce and the Geckos are joining together under the guidance of Chancellor Kai and Queen Nia. This is Ninjago, everyone. To determine whether or not peace can be achieved. Long story short, ish. So they all meet up, but they are affronted by the Skull Sorcerer, his army, and his giant freaking dragon. So they all attempt to escape, and while they're attempting to escape the dragon, Cole's gang are trying to escape a lava monster. They find the Earth Temple, more Spinjitzu Burst stuff, and Cole's like, I still don't know how to do Spinjitzu Burst. Woo, teach me. I can't teach you. I have no idea how to do Spinjitzu Burst. What's my element I'm supposed to be surrounded by? Old? I don't know. And so Cole's kind of in a funk. And Vanya's like, Woo, help him. And Woo's like, I can't. And Vanya's like, yes, you can. And Woo's like, I can't. And Vanya's like, do it. And Woo's like, okay. And so he eventually ends up helping him.
Epic.
They don't get burst to that point yet, but still. Meanwhile, the Geckos and the Munce, they lead the ninja to a stronghold where they kind of hold out for a little bit. And I guess it kind of sort of works out until it doesn't, because the dragon bursts the wall down. And the ninja are like, all right, we'll surrender. you just have to not enslave these guys again, thinking that would work. And the bad guys are like, sure. And then you're like, yes. And the bad guys are like, psych. So everyone gets enslaved again. So Cole and the others use an Earth Mech. Oh, I'm going to love talking about this. To get back to the surface, fight against all the creatures. And Vanya's like, I'm the queen against her royal guard. And that's how we lose her for a little bit. So last 2 episodes, the ninja are captured. They're going to die. But Cole just so happens to find the swords. And he fights the Skull Sorcerer. And then everyone gets loose. And that's when antics really ensue. We're talking a hayfield of stuff happening. It's just crazy. There's stuff happening over there, and then over there, and then Cole's like, ah, ching, cling, clang, pow. And he's like fighting a Skull Sorcerer who's like, and his skull thing is like, yes, evil, I'm your hype man. And then all the Munce and the Geckos are fighting all the skeletons that are actually just wither skeletons from Minecraft, and it's just crazy. Antics are ensuing left, right, center, and backwards. So eventually, Vanya and Wu and the Royal Guard come to the rescue. The blades get broken, and then Cole's like, my true potential! I'm in Spinjitzu Burst! In stores now. Manages to defeat the Skull Sorcerer by destroying that weird red skull. Get it? Vanya becomes queen. Ninja bounce. And that's the end of the season.
Green skull.
No. It's a red skull. Come on, don't you remember?
It's colorblind.
Don't you?
Yeah, I
don't...
remember.
Okay, good.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So let's discuss this.
Well, first I want to hear, are you going to give your thoughts or are you going to give your thoughts later?
Oh yeah, I forgot I was going to do that. Yeah. This was
You
a
can
good
give a little
season.
like a bridge.
Yeah, this was a good season. The pacing I thought was actually pretty good. And the way that it was structured, I think also, like, it has a lot happening. You have essentially a race war ongoing, which that's a subject Lego's tackling, which I thought they did a pretty okay job of, because it was just focused on a, see, maybe race war isn't the right way of putting it, because that's how it comes off, but maybe it's a little bit more like a, well, what are those 2 families that fought, the McCoys and the Hayfields? Is that it?
I think so.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. It's like there's a misunderstanding, and then these 2 factions are fighting because of it. And it's a basic misunderstanding. Now, you took my sword. Now you took my sword. And I get it.
Yeah.
It's simple, easy to grasp. And they, thank goodness, the show does not dwell on this mystery. At all. Like, the ninja aren't like, the Skull Sorcerer took the blades! Like last season. They're just like, yeah, they think the other side took it. It probably wasn't. The Skull Sorcerer probably has it. It's just real quick, and we don't
And
waste
then later
any time.
on, when they're talking to him, they're like, you took the blades, didn't you? Just like, you mean these? Like, there's no mystery about it.
Well, okay. So, there's no mystery as to who took them. However, there's a lot of importance placed upon the swords. And I'll get to that in a sec. More positive stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like all the characters got an adequate amount of screen time, except for, as we established before the episode began, Dareth. Dareth got 0 screen time this season, which inherently makes it the worst season. So that's a major con. I thought that the mysteries were, like, obviously they're obvious. Like, they're not a surprise to anyone, really. Like, Millie being Cole's mom. We knew that was going to happen. Sorry, Lily.
Basically from the start.
Basically from the get-go. That's not a shock. It's not a surprise. I feel like the one thing that they did really well that was kind of a mystery, but it wasn't really pressured upon, like, there wasn't a whole lot of focus on it, was who the Skull Sorcerer was. And it makes sense. Like, who it is pretty reasonable. Like, it's not some character from the past. It's a homegrown villain, and his reasons for doing that is because, I mean, he's a bad person, obviously, and he wants this ultimate power, and it's the way his kingdom has prospered, is he just exploits all of these species to mine for Venge Stone. Also, what a great way to tie into the rest of the world. This is where Venge Stone comes from. That's really go.
Yeah.
So, these aren't deep, like, confusing mysteries. They're simple, straightforward mysteries that the show allows to unravel naturally. And that's something we haven't really had the last 2 seasons. They've been mysteries. We're going, Who could it be? Who could it be? And the show either really plays with it, or...
It really doesn't.
it just... Oh my gosh! Milton Dyer is Unagami! Ah! Nothing like that this season, which makes me happy. The Munce and the Geckos, both really good. I liked both factions. They both had likable characters. I thought that the Munce were definitely the more hilarious of the two. And I am immensely disappointed that at no point did that one who did the story recaps ever say antics ensued. My heart cries. But it's okay. The rationale behind the ninja losing their powers this season, for the most part, also makes perfect sense. It didn't feel... like, at first, when it happened, it's like, oh, come on, are you kidding me? But they're surrounded by Venge Stone. Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. That makes perfect sense. I'm totally fine with this. The D&D group, also really good inclusion. I liked them a lot. They were really funny. We'll get into their standalone episodes soon, of course. The animation, top-notch. Absolutely fantastic. A lot of the fight scenes, the choreography was spectacular. The cinematography was well done. Just animation is, as usual, outstanding. A lot of the humor was also really good, too. I found myself laughing at a lot of things throughout the season. Like, not hysterical laughter, of course, but there were funny moments throughout that I really got a kick out of. Mm-hmm. And the ending wasn't super rushed. It was a little fast, I think, personally, but it wasn't super rushed. It was a satisfying conclusion, all things considered. I don't know any way I would have done it differently. And yeah, all in all, I think this season solidly ranks within my top 5. I don't know where yet, but top 5 easily, bordering on top 3.
Eljay, your recaps are getting super meta, because I think you just recapped this episode.
Of Ninjagocast, yeah.
Ninjagocast. Here I'm going through
it.
talking about the humor, the pacing.
I mean, he usually just waits for us to talk and then just agrees or disagrees. So I'm glad that you went first.
Yeah, you went first. You gave the kind of like the blueprint of where we're headed, and we're gonna go into probably each like topic and break it down.
Now,
Sayabnaf the Legendary was a super chat of $1.
Thank
you.
I do want to stress, those are my positive opinions on it. We do have there are some things that I don't like.
Yes, we will definitely get to those.
It's not critique free, and I would like to say to anybody who might be unfamiliar with us or might might not know, I would say we are definitely not Ninjago shills. We love Ninjago, we love it to death, but we also have a habit of being very, very overtly critical. And if you want evidence of that, I would look no further than the season finale review episodes for the last 3 seasons.
Honestly, just look at
all the
March of the Oni. Our review of March of the Oni's ending would suffice.
But even last season, like Prime Empire, throughout all the Ninjago community. Oh, Prime Empire is great. Prime Empire is awesome. Is the best thing since sliced bread. Marvelous Jan, I think, gave it like a 10 out of 10, didn't they? And like for me, it's in my bottom 3 seasons. I think it's horrible. So like I'm not against critiquing when I think something needs to be critiqued. So make no mistake when I say that this season is awesome, and I mean that.
Yeah.
Because I have no reason to sugarcoat it. Like I went into this, I'll admit, with very low faith. Number 1, because Prime Empire kind of burned me a little bit, and number 2, because
I mean, it was the long-awaited Cole season, and I'm gonna
I
be
was
real.
gonna say, you better not put this on Cole.
And I'm gonna be real. It was funny to joke about it being bad because of your reactions.
Yeah, who's laughing now? Who is laughing now?
But I can say, certifiably, Tommy Anderson, March of the Oni is flawless.
All right.
I mean, it certainly did have good elements. It wasn't horrible.
But yeah, so Tyler and Eljay are not afraid to announce when something is less than par. So just know that. So when they're offering compliments or they're giving feedback, they're doing this like from their heart. Me, on the other hand, I'm very positive. But if I see something wrong, I will also speak up about it too.
That's why there's a good balance. It works very well.
Incredibly positive. There's something wrong with this season. I'm kidding.
The few problems I have, I think it would honestly be easier for me to just rattle off my very few problems first. I would say number one is a problem we'll talk about much later in regards to the sets. To briefly summarize, if the show is supposed to be a vehicle for advertising a product line and making kids want to buy products that they see in the show, it categorically fails because the only set that does not lie in some way, shape, or form is the Skull Sorcerer's dragon. But again, we'll get into that later. Problem number two.
Interesting.
I guess the finale, it was kind of fast and cliche, like the realization that the Spinjitzu Burst was in him all along and that was the true power and that all he had to do was remember his mother's like last words.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've seen that before. I've seen that before in other media. But again, I say that, but like I liked that scene.
The only complaint I have about that is that Cole thought for some reason that the blades were magical. And I don't remember him ever like learning that the blades had power to give him that thought, which made it so major when the blades actually broke.
Well, I know the ninja got the story from
the ninja did
the Geckos.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cole was there.
Definitely. No, well, he got the story, but they never said that the blades were magical. Just the blades were the blades, and Gilly was the one that took down the dragon. But the ninja who learned, or at least Kai and Zane, who learned about the blades in more depth from the past chancellor, then maybe they would have been led to believe it.
That's the only thing. Is because like but that even makes sense though, because they don't know that Millie or Gilly or whatever, that's Cole's mom. They don't know that she was an elemental master.
Yeah.
So they're just like, oh, this one person soloed this terrifying dragon with a pair of swords, and it must be the swords, and we had golden weapons, that would help us beat the Oni. So it's it makes sense that they would assume that. It did feel a bit hokey in the finale or the second to last one when Cole was like really just all about the blades. Like, oh yeah, I have the swords now. I'm going to beat you. And then Skull Sorcerer was like, they have no power. And then later on he's like, it was never the swords. And he was like, I told you this. That was so freaking funny.
That was a great line. It was one of those lines that it's a cliche moment, but not a cliche line. Like it was very fresh. And I really... kudos to Braggy or whoever wrote that line. That was very well done.
Honestly. Other faults. I did not like how in the Queen of the Munce episode where Nia fights the Queen, that their fight basically is over as soon as Nia lands one blow on her.
And see, I completely disagree. I thought that was excellent. That had to happen. Because we complain all the time about the ninja getting beaten up by people who have less fighting experience than them. We have we have all of the mechanics goons beating the ninja last season. We have a bunch of random people one-upping them all the time. And then when Nia is in a one-on-one fight with someone whose only real advantage is their raw strength and speed, Nia, using her techniques, outclasses her like that. Absolutely not a problem at all. It had to be like that, and I'm glad that they were able to show off Nia's prowess in that scene, because any of the ninjas should have been able to do that.
But they're not random people, though. The queen of an entire species and their most powerful fighter does not equate to the mechanics goons.
Yeah, but
I think it should have been
their most powerful fighter still should not be stronger than any one of the ninja.
Shouldn't be stronger, no, but the fight was basically Nia getting walked over for a full minute until she finally lands one blow.
I mean, yeah.
Why not flip the variables and have an actual fight that ends with Nia winning in a powerful display of force?
You don't have to. It's unnecessary. You're going to have fights throughout the season. It's fine. This doesn't need to be one where you really have to hone that in. Because, I mean, Meso, you know how I am in games. Like, I have to spend a little bit of time figuring out the person I'm fighting before I can really start to counter it. Like,
that's true.
Nia spends that fight in a place she's not familiar with, against someone whose fighting style she's unfamiliar with, getting just walked over, and then when she actually has an opportunity to fight back, she wins. Because up until that point,
enough.
she was just getting taken, like, she was being taken off guard the entire fight. Because, I mean, listen, when I'm fighting someone, I don't expect them to do a bunch of weird hand motions and then roll up into a ball and roll me over. Like, the entire, like, the beginning of the fight, she got cocky, she went in there, got bodied, and then she was spending the rest of that fight trying to reconfigure herself. And then when she finally does and she uses her technique, that's all that was necessary. That was a good fight. That was a good display of her combat prowess. And I thought the execution was fine. There was no need to go any more. There was no need to make it a closer fight. It was completely unnecessary.
Yeah. I think the expectation lies in the fact that we want a fight with Nia 1v1 against someone. In that situation, I agree with Eljay. Her taking out the Munce Queen in a way that we've never seen a fight style like that, and she just knocks her out in one hit. Boom, perfect. But I do want a fight with Nia by herself, fighting an opponent that is difficult for her and takes a lot of like skill on her part to beat them. Because I don't think we've seen that. Like the last time we saw Nia do like a 1v1 that was absolutely excellent, I think was Ultraviolet in Hunted.
Possibly. I'm not sure. I don't remember it.
I will fully admit that my critiques are less narrative and more more meta. Like the whole purpose of a fight is to be like visually engaging and be like tense and
Not
be like
always.
dramatic. And like in a show like this with such wonderful choreography and stuff that's on display with a fight like Cole versus the Skull Sorcerer, or even the ninja versus random skeleton mooks that has free flowing one shot choreography, having a setup for a battle like that end with one hit felt a little deflating.
I agree.
Not from a narrative sense, but from a like purely visual sense.
But that's the thing.
Fair enough.
Fights are not always purely visual. Sometimes they are inherently narrative.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I see both of your points, and I
don't feel like the narrative would have been lost by making her tougher. But I agree, it's a nitpick. It's this again. I fixate on this because I don't really have anything else. My only other complaints are like Cole was kind of stupid at the start when they got captured.
Kai
because
was
he kind of he told them about the Skull Sorcerer and he told them about the enemies, but he didn't say we don't even need to fight these guys. Let's just run. And they spend so much time fighting the stupid skeleton people that they just all get reanimated when the Skull Sorcerer shows up, and then they get jailed. But like, imagine a scenario where they hadn't stopped to fight them and they just run out like they do anyway. The entire season would have it would have played out differently. So I was like screaming at my screen, "No, you stupid idiots!" And then really, my last major complaint comes from a fact purely in terms of pacing. So pacing was actually really good this go round in an event basis in terms of like how things were fleshed out. The character motivations, the threats, the backstories, the exploration of the environment, it was all pretty great. The only thing that I kind of had a thought of was at the end of episode 3, all the ninja are captured.
and the Munce are enslaved right along with the Geckos, who are also, they're also mining away. And then at the end of episode 14, all the ninja are captured, and the Munce and the Geckos are enslaved, and they're mining. And there really isn't that much of a difference. It's like the season takes a big loop, and it goes right back around to the start. And the status quo is just kind of maintained. Someone more cynical than I could take that to mean, because I know we criticized Legends of Chima a lot for this in the past, a very similar set of circumstances, could take it to mean that the bulk of the season was filler and that it doesn't really amount to much if that status quo can just slot in after 12 episodes of development. But I would argue against going that hard on that perspective, because the whole point of that was to change the paradigms of the engagements. The Geckos and the Munce are allies. The ninja know what's up, versus last time they were confused. And then Cole's out and about, doing his own thing, having learned about the plot, gotten self-confidence, and then he comes in to save them. It was a critique I had while watching, but I actually think it was pretty cool to show the subtle growth that can happen, because unlike prior seasons where we felt like the ninja didn't really have a lot to do, this season they actually did have quite a lot to do. And I think that's a good place to bridge into actual discussions. Character focus. This was Cole's season, but everybody, with the slight exception of Lloyd, who kind of had a weak arc. Zane had some good character interactions.
He had
Didn't
some
really have an
pretty
arc.
good moments. But he didn't really have an arc.
Most people had something to do. Kai and Nia were very, intrinsic with the species down there, being the Chancellor and the Queen. Cole, of course, was super relevant. Wu had an arc. Jay was kind of with Nia, to be fair. But that's kind of how those two usually go. I remember criticizing the Ice chapter because I felt like half the team had nothing to do. And same with Prime Empire. No characterization, no arcs. Did any of the ninja grow in some super meaningful way that will change them forever? No, but I felt like the situations they were put in were relevant to them as characters. And it let their personalities shine through in a way that you don't often get to see. Mm-hmm. And I think that deserves a lot of praise. Again, the only one like Zane, you're right, he didn't really have much, but his dynamic with Kai was on point, and every scene
absolutely.
they shared with like Zane throwing rocks at Kai was incredible.
That was a really good enjoyment. Well, I mean, Zane did have something. He did have the white lie.
He had the white lie, and he freed the Mino creature.
That's true.
And Lloyd had his he had an arc from the beginning and the end of trusting the princess. We saw at the very beginning. He was the one that was like, you shouldn't trust her. At the very end, he apologized.
Which is Vanya's super weak.
So
it's very weak, but it gives him something.
Here's the thing. I don't see the need for every character to have an arc every season.
Yeah.
I would actually much prefer the way that they did it this time, which was just putting characters in situations where their reactions displayed their personalities. Like it was.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because in the past, we've criticized them for feeling like they're the same character.
Yes.
Feeling like a lot of their dialogue bleeds together, and I didn't feel that at all this time.
Yes.
I felt like who they were came through. But again, I will say, Lloyd's, when you introduce something in episode 2, and then you don't mention it again until episode 16, that's a failure in my book.
Now, the one thing I'll say to that is he didn't see the princess at all from episode 2 to episode 16. They literally were not even in the same room. They weren't even on the same floor. He was in underground and she was in a completely different area. So he didn't really have a chance to have that. But it's like a little tiny bit of a reminder of Harumi that they just spun in there. So
I feel like they were all given a little something to do, even Wu, which I really appreciate.
Yes.
His arc, I was joking the whole way through in the reactions. Yes, it's time for Wu to die. Give it up. It's over, old man. And I do think there's some merit to that because the cast is a little bloated. But if they weren't going to get rid of him this episode and this season,
kind of bolstered him back up as a member of the team. Whereas last season he was a complete joke that got bested by the mechanics goons.
Mm-hmm.
So props, they did that really well. And then of course the big one,
Cole.
your boy Cole.
Cole. Oh my god, did he get some growth this season?
I hesitate to say if growth is the right word, but he definitely got a lot of focus.
Yeah, I'm also not
I'm
sure
really
about...
like speechless when it comes to like what we're...
I don't know about growth either, because I don't ever think he was in a situation
Start with...
like... No,
She's lagging out.
no kidding. Hayley?
Bad lag on your end.
Okay, well, she's gone for the moment.
Rip, the sensei has left the dojo.
Mm-hmm.
Time to kick it old school.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Remember
But,
the duo of the rebooted review just like clapping?
yeah. Yeah.
Good times.
I still like Rebooted a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is, Cole...
Hear me now or no?
Up there you are. Or not.
She's popping in and out.
Yep.
Hear me now?
Nope.
No. No.
My internet is going through like insane, like it's going in and out.
I heard that come through clearly. Prentice, the moment that Hayley gets a cold season to talk about, she lags out. It's a conspiracy. Well, here, I'll shift gears temporarily.
Okay.
Let me read some comments. X-Cross. What I learned from this season. Cole is a good leader. He's the most determined, I think, of the ninja, and his dry sense of humor is great. No development, but we have a better grasp on who he is.
Yeah, I can agree
I think
with that.
that is a more accurate assessment, I would say.
That's why I don't necessarily think every character needs to go through an arc. Like,
Yeah.
arcs should be used to establish characters, but established characters should have those established traits and characteristics challenged, and that's how you learn about their character. So in
Bingo.
this, like, Cole is being confronted partially with his past and partially with trying to discover this legacy and live up to it. And that's how we learn more about Cole, which is important because we've been complaining for however long that he hasn't really had a character. He hasn't really had situations that really challenged him specifically.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is about the most personal you can get, following in the footsteps of his mom, her legacy, her his dying promise to her, when she's on her deathbed. Not to mention being in a place uniquely catered to him and his element and his style of combat and maneuverability. There were so many situations that could not be resolved in any way without Cole present. Are you back?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. I don't know how long this is going to last. It's been going on for about 15 minutes, but hopefully I can at least say my opinion before I leave again.
The general thing we're talking about is that we don't really think there was any development with Cole, just that we have a better idea of who he is.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
He had a lot of growth in his identity, his part of the team, and kind of his elemental status, and with his history as well. So
how about that flashback with him and his mom?
I want to talk deeply about that, because number one, that was a beautiful flashback. It was a little cliche, but I'll let that one slide because it was really, really sweet. We got to meet Lily for the first time. And Cole was wearing plaid, so I don't know why it's so big that he's wearing plaid, but he was so small and he was so adorable. So not many people know this, I'm going to get really personal for a second.
Oh no.
So, when I was 4, my own mother passed away to cancer. She got sick. She sadly died. I made a similar promise, not to vanquish evil because I'm not that powerful, but to watch out for my own dad and brother. So seeing that happen with my favorite character and my favorite show was absolutely astonishing. And it's, I'm sure, completely coincidental, but that impacted me deeply. And
Made it very personal.
It made it incredibly personal. And it's like, another connection point with me and Cole. So I definitely teared up during that moment. It was very,
it's just one of those things, right? About having that portrayed in like a media like this that already speaks to you on a personal level, like that, that dedication to those people who love you and who have to leave. It's a good thing to have in there. And I do think it was handled very well.
It was. It did a great job with his big moment at the end when he returned to that memory in his moment of peril to finally reach his elemental burst.
His third true potential.
His third true potential, yeah. And like Zane, we now have a motto for Cole. So I'm very excited that Cole has that line that we can all refer to.
Let's talk about the Spinjitzu Burst.
Yes,
because
Burst.
It's another true potential style power up that I guess was how Lily defeated Griefbringer. Is I guess what they were getting at, because in the little painting we see, she like chops him into pieces with the swords, but I'm guessing that's not how that fight would have actually gone down at all.
No,
I ripped him apart with the tornado.
We saw in the runes in the Earth Temple, like she was standing in the middle of a vortex. And everything was coming out from her. So I'm guessing that was how she actually defeated, I'm guessing, the original Skull Sorcerer and the dragon itself.
So the way it's portrayed is the Spinjitzu Burst is something you can do when you're surrounded by your element. And it's kind of odd because there have been instances in the past that look very burst-like, and you highlight one of them. Yes,
I was thinking last night, I was lying in bed thinking about the Spinjitzu Burst, and I was like, yeah, so it's a tornado that of an element that when you're around your element, it looks really cool. And I was like, what would Kai look like? That'd be really cool. What would Zane look like? Oh, that'd be really cool. What would Nia look like? Wait a second. We all remember what happened in Possession, right?
Oh, yeah.
A huge tornado of water when they were in the middle of the ocean, and she created a tidal wave big enough to destroy a realm. We didn't know about the Spinjitzu Burst, but it exists. Wu doesn't know what a Spinjitzu Burst is, but he knows it exists.
And she was surrounded by water.
She was surrounded by water, and she reached her true potential without the help of golden elemental weapons like the other ninja did. So, sure, it was her true potential, but maybe she went beyond that and did a Spinjitzu Burst without anyone even realizing it. We've never even seen her do anything like that again. Probably because she's never been in the middle of water again.
What do you think, Tommy? If you're still in the chat, what do you think about that? Because I think it's a pretty good piece of connective tissue myself. It's just one of those cool things because I always did wonder. I always thought it was kind of crazy that Nia, who was a new ninja, barely in control of her powers, could muster it up to such a degree to destroy an entire realm. But now that we know about this latent ability and the circumstances you have to be in to activate it, I could totally buy that as a retroactive explanation.
Yeah, I'd be fine with this. Yeah.
It makes perfect sense to me.
I would be totally fine with that.
And I know in the show it says that Earth Elementals were the ones to master it, but also Earth Elementals are the ones, not to take it away from Cole, probably the easiest one to reach because it's so easy to get surrounded by Earth. You just go underground. Fire, what are you supposed to go? Go stand in the middle of a fireplace while it's lit? Or
How about
wind? Just a windy day, or
how about Griffin Turner? How's he gonna unlock his elemental burst?
he's got to run really fast in a circle,
Or
or gravity.
Well,
he just like
now in all fair,
falls.
all right. So real quick, to be fair, this is Spinjitzu Burst. It's not Elemental Burst.
yeah, it's fair.
True.
So
Tommy says, I think Hayley has just gotten us us all to reconsider that whole thing. Nice.
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Because it could be possible. It could be a fun little nod to Nia being powerful. I mean, if she were to do it now with the new studio and how they animate water and how they element like huge elemental explosions, it would look different. But with the old studio, when they had huge moments of elemental power, it wasn't as magnificent as what we see now. So,
Yeah.
food for thought.
But I think Eljay makes the very good point that it is funny as it is to speculate about other elemental masters. It probably is Spinjitzu specific.
Yeah. At which point, I'm perfectly fine with that. So maybe we can kind of come to that conversation if the Master of Speed learns Spinjitzu.
Learns Spinjitzu. So,
But
Yeah.
it thankfully this is a point where consistently Spinjitzu has been specified, and it's only if that Nia example is accurate, then we have only seen burst used by Spinjitzu wielders.
masters.
Yeah.
Because they probably have more of a tap to their elemental energy than other elemental users.
Perhaps. Real quick, super chat from Neon Jays, $5 with this message.
Thank you.
Cole had development in the way of self-esteem / belief, which has always been hinted as something he struggles with. He learned to trust his power and ideas. Fair enough.
Put it better than I could.
Fair enough. Also, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Tommy Griffin Turner would need to be at the Daytona 500. I wonder if the master.
Oh my gosh! It's a tornado of cars.
Tornado.
I just like to think that like the master of sound has to do it at a concert or something. It's like a super loud. It just starts like a mosh pit. Spinjitzu in the crowd. Pretty wild.
Skylar would just need to either be like being hugged by every single elemental master or something like that.
Oh my god, Skylar, I didn't even consider that.
I feel like you just need a threshold for her, like 6 elements at once, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, something
I remember
absurd
seeing a
and
joke.
specific.
A joke would be like, okay, so how would Lloyd reach his elemental burst? Because he's the master of energy.
Is it energy?
Spirit bomb.
So, or he's the master of green. I remember seeing this on Twitter. I'm gonna quote you in a second, but the joke was he needs to be surrounded by green paintings, and then he can become, the master of green or whatnot. I thought that was funny.
Green.
But I mean, the one time we've seen him get extra like super powered up is when the ninja all shoot their elements at him to like give him a whole bunch of energy. So maybe that could happen if the ninja all just shoot their elements at him and hope that he doesn't die in the process, and he'll like get his Spinjitzu Burst or something, even though it's a set for this wave. So,
yeah, okay,
we'll get there. But,
the thing I like the most, again, about Cole, he may not have had a lot of crazy development, but like as much as I've mocked him in the past and mocked you for liking him so much, I do like Cole. When you and I watched through all of Ninjago, again, he's always been one of my favorites, just because his delivery is good. He gets funny lines. He has like really good one-liners, and I mean, he's just a likable guy. But the problem's always been that he hasn't really had a lot of his own stuff to deal with. Everyone else gets very clearly defined, traits. Cole's more of an amorphous blob. This season, how they split everyone up into 3 groups, I think really helped, because not only did it allow the other ninja to exemplify their own personal traits and approaches to a situation. But by that same token, because Cole was by himself and or with a new character and Wu, then he was able to lean into more of his own personality and what makes it tick. It's still not super, super dramatized or super specific, like Kai is or like Jay is.
Yeah.
But he's more than his own person enough to where I can finally drop that critique. And I hope that it sticks that way.
Yeah.
Probably won't when he's, not in focus, but that's less of a complaint with him and more just of like the cast, which I will continue to say is a problem. But for this season alone, I think it did its job really well. And I think that's my number one thing I love about it is that I felt like everybody was done justice except for Lloyd.
Yeah.
For in the chat for Lloyd.
But he's had his history, so he's fine.
Exactly. If there's anyone I'm fine with taking a back seat, it will always be Lloyd.
The green guy. So it's funny because Cole is kind of, if we had to classify him, he would be the most introverted character of all of them, which has been hinted at a few times. But when he's forced to take the lead, which he did in episode 10, which was marvelous, or to like focus on his past with his mom and rise above it, like him having all the other ninja chained up and he's the only one that can face this Skull Sorcerer. I mean, if the other ninja were free, I'm sure Lloyd would just go attack him, but Cole was the one that was free and in the moment to do so. He was given the chance to be the hero, which we haven't had before. So I'm very, very happy with the season in that term. So
it was wonderful.
Absolutely.
I think they did exceptionally. And it's the first time since March of the Oni where I've felt like they are able to do that exceptionally. Because up until now, I've literally just been like, this show needs to cut characters. It needs to cut them. There's too many. This is the first season where I've been like, all right.
It's a good cast.
This can still work. Because it's not that I don't like them. It's just I get concerned that the stories they're writing aren't tailored to them. This one was. It was good. But there's another reason why this season's one of my favorites. And it's perhaps even greater than that. And that is the new characters. And they break them down into 3 groups. The Shintaro... Go on.
Before we go on to the new characters, you can't talk about Cole this season without talking about Vanya.
Well, she's one of the new characters.
She's one of the new characters in the Shintaro thing. But she's not just a new character. She is what we call the big Li. A love interest.
But is she, though?
But is she?
Because everybody was afraid. Everybody was afraid that, like, oh, she's going to be Cole's love interest. And I'm like...
It's like the writers say that she's not, but the animators say that they are.
There's so many, like, shots.
Well, it's like all the lines of dialogue don't hint at it, but all of their, like... emotion presented. I like all the.
There are so many scenes where like they're lovingly staring into each other's eyes, like it's very
or holding hands or smirking or I don't know.
It's very transparent that there is an intention. But here's the big thing: usually people cringe at this kind of stuff because it's forced, it's shoehorned in. It's overt, it's over the top, and as such, it kind of makes it hard to like connect with on a viewer basis, or see people as anything other than like blanks, love interest, or whatever. The reason why Vanya works is because she is a character. First and foremost,
she's a character.
They did not.
Skylar and Pixel, like I'm not a character.
I mean, kind of. Because in the seasons they were introduced, Skylar was Kai's crush, who turned out to be a bad guy, who then turned out to be a good guy. And in Rebooted, it was like Zane's crush, who turned out to be a bad guy, who turned out to be a good guy. And like it follows a template. Vanya's just a person who has her own personality and her own little quirks and her own issues to work out. And at the end of it all, they never do anything with it. But the fact is, it doesn't matter at that point because if they ever choose to do anything with it in the future, cool. And if they don't,
Yeah.
also cool.
Also cool.
Because she stands on her own as a good character.
She
and
impressed all of us.
I cannot say enough how much I appreciate that. She was a very good addition.
She was hilarious. She was adventurous. She was a great I don't want to say foil, but she was a foil to Wu above all people. She was the perfect piece to the lowly plus Cole and Wu. Like if she wasn't there, it would feel empty. So her character is crafted perfectly to fit in with that mix. And also her dragon is the cutest creature in Ninjago.
Yes,
there is no debate.
The magically expanding
the Shintaro Ridgeback.
No explanation given for why it gets so big. Shintaro Ridgeback. They just never explain it once, and I kind of respect that, but I'm also just like, why does it get big and then get small? Is there like a reason?
I don't think it matters really.
I don't know. But to say, if the ninja can create dragons out of elemental energy, the fact that a dragon can grow and shrink.
I don't know that they can.
Oh my gosh, they used to.
He was falling to his death and he didn't.
Oh my gosh. Read Way of the Departed.
I'm just saying. Don't you remember there was that one scene in Tournament of Elements where Lloyd was going to fall without a parachute and he had to figure out how to summon his dragon? Anyway, she was a really good character and I appreciate it. People go up in arms because of people have their own like ships or whatever. And I'm like, at the end of the day, it doesn't really necessarily matter. Like if the community wants to have ships and people they like pair together, that's fine. As far as what's canon, the only thing I care about is that it's well written.
Yeah.
And like I don't feel like they needed to be a thing to have it be well written, but likewise I don't feel like they don't need to be a thing to have it be well written. It's all about good characterization, and they did that, so props.
Vanya is also the first character in Ninjago that I can relate to personality wise. I feel like her and I have like the same personality.
Oh yeah.
So,
that much is true.
Kudos to that. But yeah, Shintaro people. Let's talk about those.
And the guards were pretty generic, but the king, aka the Skull Sorcerer, our villain for the season.
King Angelic.
He's a weird one. I think it's Vangelis.
Vangelis. Right. Yeah. I said Angelic.
You did?
Angelic Vangelis. You know, pretty similar.
I see people in disagreement about him as a character, about whether he's a good villain or not. And I get why, because on the spectrum of Ninjago villains, he definitely is more generic. You know, evil skull guy who is evil and is power hungry and enslaves people and has a skeleton army. Like, he's not really subtle about the things that he does. And yet, at the same time, I feel like his greatest strengths are, number one, aesthetics, and number two, his concept. Because he's this guy who's been given, like, magical powers to reanimate the dead through this ancient, like, relic. It's almost less about him as a character and his personality, and more about the general vibe he gives off. He feels very unique in the world of Ninjago. There hasn't ever really been a villain like him, and I appreciate that because it makes him stand out. Like, for character, you don't really need to have him be any more nuanced because his conflict comes from Vanya. His conflict comes from that familial bond. His conflict comes from him being the ruler of this nation, but doing all this sketchy stuff, you know, behind the scenes. If you had him be more deep or nuanced or have some tragic backstory, it wouldn't really change the core tenets of the conflict there. So I'm glad they didn't dedicate runtime towards giving him more of a focus, because he really didn't need it. He was very self-sufficient as a character. My problems with him are not in his character, which I think worked, and it's not in his vibe. It's purely his design and his voice acting, because his design was very radically changed from the minifigure, which again we'll talk about later with sets. But I don't like how his face constantly contorts when he's screaming. It looks kind of dumb. And also the voice acting is more than a little hammy at
any point when he raises his voice, when he's cool and calculating and methodical, I'm like, oh, this sounds great. This dude's intimidating. And then he screams, and I just start laughing because almost every bit of dialogue he says is cheesy villain dialogue. And Cole even makes fun of it. He's like, oh yeah, when you've heard one of these bad guy speeches, they all sound the same, blah, blah, you're trapped, blah, blah, no one's coming to save you. And then he's like, no one is coming to save you. Like, so they're lampshading it, but that doesn't make it not a thing. There's been villains in the past who are far more subtle, you know, like your Nauticons, or even as overdramatic as he was, like your Master Chins, who can be more like eccentric about things. This guy falls very much into the original Garmadon, aka Samukai, aka Oni villain, or Iron Baron camp in terms of his dialogue and delivery. But as a villain, I think he worked out pretty well. I definitely like them better than Unagami, and 1,000,000% better than the Ice Emperor. Asphira, I don't know. I think she might be a bit better.
Yeah.
Bit better.
I liked the motivation of the Skull Sorcerer. I thought it was really he wasn't like cursed. He was inherently bad with his own, like he knew he was evil.
Yeah.
Like he was like, oh, I have this horrible curse. I being controlled by this skull or whatnot. It's like, no, he chose to be this way. He deserves everything that he gets, and it's like it makes him more real because it's more of a realistic circumstance where he's using this power to benefit his kingdom and whatnot.
Like, so, it would have been so easy for them to go, oh, the kingdom of Shintaro is in declining state. Yeah. Its citizens are struggling. There aren't enough resources. The country needs more to survive. So the king goes and hunts down this relic which will grant his kingdom riches. But then the relic corrupts him and turns him evil. But he did it for the love of his people and the love of his daughter. Because then the villain becomes the skull, the stupid talking skull, and not him. And sometimes that works when you have villains that are meant to be sympathetic. Like, I would never say that sympathetic villains are a bad thing to have. They're usually the more memorable ones. But Ninjago has a lot of sympathetic villains. You know, Nauticon lost the love of his life and his pirate crew and just wanted to get his friends back and became corrupted with power. Harumi, her parents were killed in the falling building, and so she overcame with vengeance. You know, Garmadon, he struggles with his nature and getting bitten by the snake. Asphira, what?
Moro, who was told that he could become the greatest ninja only to find out he wasn't.
Exactly. Asphira, who, I mean, she wasn't really that sympathetic, but she did get imprisoned and, like, betrayed, and, you know, she had a grudge with Wu. Zane, of course, Ice Emperor. Unagami is, like, the poster child for this. You don't really have that many just evil Ninjago villains. It's basically just Overlord, Samukai, and all those other, like, rank and file mooks, like Pythor. Pythor and Chin. So, Skull Sorcerer, Vangelis, he fits really nicely into that bracket. I think he was a good villain. He's cool.
He was great. The most curious thing about, and I don't know if you guys ever discussed this in my internet droppage, is that he is selling Vengestone to a unidentified buyer. That is still a mystery. I can only see this as set up for future content from Ninjago. And we have had many a discussion about who this could be, and we got to no results. We have no idea who this could be, because we're going through past villains who are still kicking that has a lot of money. And I honestly don't know who.
I mean, it could always just be someone new who has a lot of money.
New, but if that's someone who has a lot of money who's new and has a lot of Vengestone on their hands, we're going to get a very interesting season. I can tell you that.
Imagine if the next season it's like you have a Cyrus Borg type, except he's more like Elon Musk than Cyrus Borg, and he's just this like really popular guy, this like inventor, this super wealthy dude. and like he's the villain. Like they could do that, or they could make it a character we know.
Yeah.
If it is set up, then it was very well done set up because it was organically woven in. Like it's not like the ninja they ended the season with, and now it's time we track down the buyer to figure out where all this Vinge stone is. Like it's not heavy-handed at all. They introduce it not as a stinger, but as a this is why he's doing this. Maybe we can do something with this later on. It was a very organic planting of the seed.
Yes, it's one of those like. It didn't take the attention away from the season, but it's one of those like foods for thought. You know, something's coming. Something is coming with Vengestone. So, and I also feel bad for Queen Vanya, who now has to live with her kingdom, who used to be making a profit out of selling Vengestone. She has to figure out something else to do. So,
I mean, they can still sell Vengestone, just don't use slave labor. Just
true.
like.
I guess they can do that, even though
there's nothing wrong
the only thing that can stop the ninja.
There's nothing wrong with mining. It's just that he like enslaved the subterranean denizens to it. It's not like they went the angle of the Vengestone is what's necessary to keep the caves up and running. So by doing this, you're destroying their homes. It's not that. It's just that they were friggin' enslaved to do it.
Enslaved to do it. So
Vanya was the real tragic character of this season, though.
Yeah, that I have one. Like I agree with all of your complaints to a extent, but the one complaint that I bring to the table, which is very nitpicky, is the fact that the ninja went to Shintaro for a birthday party, and we never saw a birthday party, and the ninja never told Vanya happy birthday, and Vanya, Miss Birthday Princess, lost her dad, found out the truth about her kingdom, and became queen. All on her birthday, and we don't. It's like
without one mention of her
birthday. So it's like I understand that a whole bunch of stuff went down. It's a very small nitpick, but it's like,
It was like they needed a reason to get the ninja there.
They had to get a circumstance to get the ninja there,
but then they didn't really do anything with it.
Yeah,
like it could have been solved with just a throwaway line at the end, like they did with Lloyd talking to her to close that door. Like happy birthday,
walking off, look over his shoulders, like, oh, by the way. Happy birthday, Queen Vanya.
Like, but no, she's the real tragic character. Like, I wrote this in one of our chats. It was like, imagine having your entire kingdom like go insane. Your visitors and idols kidnapped and enslaved. Your father revealed as a traitorous, evil skull sorcerer who's trying to abuse your kingdom's underground residents. And so you're forced to team up with a group of random subterranean nobodies after almost falling to your death, and then having to fight the entire royal guard by yourself to convince them you're telling the truth, only to have to watch your father be carted away to rot in prison for the rest of his life, and the responsibilities of ruling a nation unexpectedly thrust upon your shoulders way before you were ready, only to then have to say goodbye to your maybe potential boyfriend who leaves and will likely never see you again because this show goes through secondary characters like paper towels when all you really wanted was some cake and some autographs. Like Vanya is by far and above. She's a rough one.
Like we thought Lloyd was tragic.
No, like I feel bad for her, man. But she was really good. Her dad was really good. Let's talk about the Geckos and the Munce. They were fun.
Their designs. Their designs are fun, and their cultures are very fun as well. I like they were different. Like that was a lot of fun.
They brought a sense of levity, but also heart because like they're both kind of stupid. Like they're very innocent people. Like the
simple minds.
The Geckos throw rocks. And they decide things. They decide political matters by like rhino fighting and slug racing. Meanwhile, the Munce, they're just like very simple-minded. They eat like disgusting food. They value strength. You know, they're neither of them are too like advanced, and yet they're so innocent. They evoke your sympathy because it's like, oh, I don't want anything bad to happen to these guys, you know. So you want to be protective, and you get annoyed when they're like enslaved and being treated badly. So they work quite well as the emotional heart. And like Eljay was saying earlier, the misunderstanding between them was done very well because it could have been over dramatized and it wasn't. Like it fit the perfect kind of a role for that kind of misunderstanding in the story they were telling, to where eventually when they worked things out and they kind of mended things up, it didn't feel contrived. It didn't feel forced. It felt pretty natural because it kind of makes sense, that kind of misunderstanding and hatred. If you ever actually would just talk to the other group and kind of realize that neither of you are evil people, you would probably work things out pretty quickly. And that's exactly what they did. And it was cathartic.
All it took was Nia to become queen and Kai to become chancellor.
Yep. Which again was really cool. But that actually involved a ninja, and they actually made a difference there.
Yeah. And it's one of those like circumstances that go along really well with their characters too. And it created a lot of funny situations.
And I love Geckos are my favorite because they have all these like quirks, like the throwing of rocks, which Zane picks up on and starts doing it to Kai, and then the slug race. Like they're just great. They were great additions, and I love them all.
I think my favorite gag from
What is
this
that static?
is
Your mic.
Oh, I think that was just water. But
Okay.
my favorite gag from this season is Zane throwing a pebble at Kai. Every single time he's in agreement with him. Like, that's by far my, like, I hope that kind of stays. Because it's so great.
Most definitely. So then I want to talk about the last few characters. That being the lowly. Or should I say, the uply. They were awesome. They were freaking great. They're some of my favorite side characters ever. They were woven in so naturally. They showed up late. It was a surprise. They were integral to the events that had happened. They were unique enough to stand out. You had like Korgren, which is just an old school like adventure cartoon man. He-Man incarnate, Fungus, there's another sorcerer. I like Magic, and then what was it, Plundar? He was just funny. I love Plundar. And we actually are at a state where we have a giant spider as a pet, and we all get like sad when it's in danger. This is the actual state of things. But they were really good additions. They worked really well with Cole's crew, you know, being part of his dynamic. They all had their own individual quirks that made them work really well together as a team. And I really, 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 really hope this is not the last we see of them, because they were really, really awesome. And some stuff just wasn't explained. They better not never show up again. They
It's
better
going to
come
make me
back.
so mad. Cole gets a crew and they're immediately gone.
Dude, I swear. And then the not talking axe.
Yeah, the axe that doesn't talk.
I love they just didn't explain that.
You guys are bananas.
The axe. And it ties in pretty well because it was Metalonia where Korgren came from, which is Karloff's home, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I like
Oh,
that a
wait,
lot.
really?
Just that little
Really?
bit of-
I did not know that.
Yep.
That wow. I really like that. I had no idea
It's a
that.
tiny little bit of world building. It was great.
Yes. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, no, I like them. I like them a lot. The episode where we explored their backstory, as it were. Maybe it was just because I was asleep. Well, not asleep, but like still trying to wake up for it. But watching it, I kind of just got the impression that I wasn't watching Ninjago for a moment, because it went back to the animated style, which I still really like. But if you had told me that this was Ninjago 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you.
It's
And
deviated quite a lot.
And see, that's not a bad thing. That it was just weird. It was just a weird feeling. I thought it was a funny episode. I thought it was a good episode. I really liked the crew. It was just a little jarring, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It's just it's like something to adjust to.
It's very jarring, and I was initially kind of put off by that episode, and I didn't really like it all that much until I kind of started thinking about these animated episodes so far and the purpose they achieve by doing them. Not just the animated ones, but also even just the one-shot filler episodes in general. Like Prime Empire didn't have an animated episode, did it?
No,
I don't think it did.
so.
But it had like the Zane episode, which was in traditional animation, but with a different spin. And what I've found is when they do things like this, they're usually trying to reference or pay homage to a certain genre. Like the first animated episode was very much anime parody, specifically Dragon Ball Z, but anime in general. The second episode was kind of a reference, like the cultural thing of the ice people, the formlings, the whole spiritual journey to find your true self. Then we have the regular one-off episodes like the Preeminent, which was a reference to kaiju movies, or the Zane episode from last season, which was a reference to detective shows and movies. And now this episode, which is a reference to old school like adventure cartoons.
Yeah.
Like He-Man. It's weird by itself, and it still is going to be weird in context of the show. Like, it does feel very not Ninjago-like. But I do enjoy that whenever they do a quote-unquote filler episode or a variance from the usual style, they're usually trying to put a creative spin on it in some form. Like, none of them feel the same from each other. And they get props for that, even if some of the individual ones I don't really like.
Yeah.
I appreciate trying new things, I guess, is it.
It's always a fun episode to sit through to see what it's going to present to the table in terms of these characters. Like seeing Plundar, like his anime design, like I would never have pictured him with hair sticking out of his hood because that's impossible for Lego minifigures to have. But like for the rest of the season, I had that image in my head whenever I saw him. So
yeah,
it helps with that as well.
So, we've talked about characterization for the ninja. We've talked about side characters. We've talked about the plot. I want to talk about the visuals for a second.
Yes.
Because I remember making a few comments when I saw the trailer. I forget if they were on a break feed or just in private conversations. I was like, this looks pretty bland. I don't really like the dungeon look. It looks very gray. Not a lot of color. Very glad to be proven wrong. There definitely were some spots that were visually lacking. Because, of course, it's going to be like gray caves. There's only so much you can do with that. But the sheer amount of variance the different locales had, like, it was important, I think, for me to have considered in the past, I should have done, is that the main cave where they were all imprisoned mining probably wasn't going to be the only location. Because we had the lava-filled minecart tracks, we had the lava monster battle, we had the Kingdom of Shintaro, which is very visually distinct. The Geckos and Munce homes were very visually distinct. The Earth Temple, that was all different. And of course, the animated episode with the backstory of the lowly, that was visual variants. There were a lot of really striking pieces of visuals this season, both in terms of art design, but more than that, animation. The fight scenes were freaking incredible.
Yes. I completely forgot that the studio could do outstanding sword combat, because the only time we had seen it in the past few seasons was Lloyd versus Harumi, and then back to the fire chapter. Yeah. And so all of a sudden, when we were seeing like top-notch like choreography between between Cole and the Skull Sorcerer, I think we were all like in complete awe. Like, it was completely outstanding. It threw us all on. It was completely unexpected.
Cole versus the Skull Sorcerer was an incredible fight. Not just for the back and forth, but for like the choreography. It wasn't even just that. It was the fight against the lava monster when they were in the lava room and they were flinging rocks at him and using the rocks as a shield, and the lowly were like cutting up his tentacles and throwing magic at him, and the spider was swinging around. There was a sense of scale there. Yes. That was really great.
And then it even continued with Cole's Earth Mech against the magma monster again, with the one shot that completely blew my mind when he went through the magma monster. And it was like a slow-mo just stab. We also get the dragons even have some combat against each other.
They
And
do.
those short little moments we get them attacking each other was phenomenal.
A very rare dragon versus dragon battle. You do not see that often. And then my favorite thing, which I think I like more than the Cole versus Skull Sorcerer fight, just because I'm a sucker for this, these like one-shot sequences. There were 2 of them. One of them was with the lowly and the Geckos and the Munce, and then one was with the ninja and the Geckos and the Munce, I think. And it just goes from one person to another, and like they use throwing objects as transitions. Like someone will throw like a mace and it'll fly by and then like lead you to where the next person is who's fighting, and then there's some kind of transition to go from them to the next person that isn't a cut. And it's like, yes, please give me more of that. I love it to death. That's always one of my favorite things.
Oh, absolutely.
Pretty much anything, live action or animated, I'm a sucker for one-shot takes.
It's like a sense of like collaboration community, like how they're working together. It also worked with scale.
Yes, that's the biggest thing for me.
And everything. So
it's very hard to effectively communicate the scale of a battle.
Yeah.
In a medium like this, but Ninjago did it very well this season, because there were moments where the dungeons are huge. There's lots of stuff going on, but if you're only focused on the ninja in the usual way, the camera frame shots, you don't really appreciate it as well as you normally would. Like, it looks by the books, like I've seen this before. But when you have scenes like that, and the objects that are being thrown to lead you into the next scene, they go a large distance. It really shows the breadth of the conflict and the sheer amount of area that's being taken up by it. And it makes my jaw drop, not to mention, like you said, the collaboration. It really shows like the teamwork angle.
More of a team. They're working
So we
together.
had large-scale mech versus monster fights, incredible person-to-person fights, and large-scale team-up fights, both in terms of team versus one giant enemy and team versus many small enemies. They literally checked every single box besides some kind of vehicle chase sequence. And even then, you had the minecart and the dragon battles, which kind of filled that void. And the bounty, which got destroyed in the first episode.
Got hurt in the first episode. I wouldn't say destroyed.
Freaking funny.
We'll let this one slide.
Dude, the mast fell off. It got destroyed.
It was headed right toward the mountain. The dire bats went.
It got damaged.
It was literally having to be carried to even be functional.
Yeah, I know, but it got damaged.
Okay, fine. We won't let it slide. Come on, bounty. Every season.
Literally, in terms of visuals and animation, I'm not exaggerating. They checked like every box, everything they could have possibly done. I'm like, yes, and an animated episode too. On top of that,
an animated episode. So I don't know how they did it, but
like I'm not a superficial person when I consume media. I'm far more interested in nitpicking the plot than I am about praising, visual animation. Personally, that's just how I roll. But I can't overlook the sheer increase in the production side of things since the studio switch. Like, I love Will Film to death. And I criticized the sacrifices that had to be made in this new studio, like flatter colors, flatter textures, etc. But the moment I saw the Fire chapter and I saw what they could do with it, it's been like an uphill kind of a climb. It kind of petered out with Prime Empire, but that's what really makes this season stick out to me so much. It's got the character focus and the lore of classic Ninjago with the production values of modern Ninjago.
Yeah.
You combine those two together and you have greatness.
Yep. This season is like storybook for top tier Ninjago. Like, I'm so proud not only that this is a Cole season, but that this is an amazing season this late in the game. Like, Ninjago, like people are like, Ninjago is like, maybe it's faltering. Some people thought it not the case for Prime Empire, but some people also thought the opposite. But Master of the Mountain came in piping hot, and I'm super excited to see what's following this.
Oh yeah.
So, like I said, I've never been more excited for a season, and I've never been more excited after watching a season. also
I was joking while we were watching it. You can see on the reactions, like I'm just waiting for the inevitable, like the floor to fall out under us, because it feels like there's always a catch, right? Like I love Ninjago, but historically, there have only been like 3 season finales that haven't left me with some kind of a negative impression, be it for cliche moments or plot holes or being rushed or whatever. Literally, the only ones were like rebooted, Possession, and yeah, it's basically it. Skybound now, but back when, not even that was exempt because I hated the time
You're
travel.
talking about pacing, and you mentioned rebooted.
Rebooted had some problems, but it also had Zayn's sacrifice.
True. I would say it.
Which is the only thing that I remember.
Rebooted was.
I'm talking about the season finales exclusively.
Oh, season finales. Okay, gotcha.
Like, there's plenty of problems with every season, but like historically, there's always some kind of problem with the ending. You know, Overlord, Stone Arm, it's the cliche Golden Lloyd cringe. Rebooted had the shrinking pill. Tournament of Elements, everybody had to hold the line, literally hold the line, hold their razor sharp swords back. Possession was good, but it was a 2-parter. Yeah. So it had a little bit of an unfair advantage. Skybound had time travel retcons, Hands of Time had time travel stupidity. Sons of Garmadon had like giant rock monster Frankenstein Garmadon in a season about nuanced villainy. Hunted had I will not fight you, but I will resist you. I will not fight you, I will resist you. I will not fight you, I will resist you. March of the Oni was March of the Oni. Ice Chapter was Ice Chapter. Prime Empire was actually pretty good. The ending was the best part of that season.
The ending was the best part, but there was no setup, which caused it to be.
That's not for me to say that those problems make every season finale awful. But it does usually like linger with me. Tommy says March of the Oni perfection time. No, I feel like I do play up my hatred for March of the Oni a little for laughs. I legitimately didn't like aspects of it, but it was a good closure for like OG Ninjago. It's not like it was worthless, but it just I wish it could have been a full season instead of 4 episodes.
It itself was the truest form of Ninjago in both the good and the bad.
Yeah. If it could have been more than 4 episodes, I think it would have been great.
Like I said, they put a lot on their plate for March of the Oni, and everything that they wanted to deliver on, they did, but sacrifices were made. So, while it is, in my book, perfection, it may not be perfection for others. So.
Well, to finish my point, it's not to say that every finale that has nitpicks means it's awful. But usually speaking, when it comes to sticking a landing, it can change how I view the entire season.
Yeah.
I went through the Ice chapter watching, and we speculated week by week, oh, what are they going to do? How are they going to resolve this? They're setting so many things up. This could really be a great ending. And when it underperforms or it has these weird qualities, like that's what lingers with you because it was the last impression. But this season, and with a few others, but specifically about this season, was its ending anything revolutionary? No. Was it a little cliche? No. But did it break my immersion? Also, no. It didn't seek to reinvent the wheel in the 11th hour, but nor did it go super hammy, cheesy cringe. Yes, Cole unlocked the true power through the power of belief and family love. But that was set up earlier in the season. So it did not come out of nowhere. That was set up as one of his driving motivations here. And the fact that nobody knew how to do the burst kind of gave you a hint that it wasn't going to be anything technical. It was going to be through the power of, yourself. So that it's not like that came out of nowhere either. It crescendoed everything in a satisfying way, and it left you with a sense of closure. It didn't try to do anything crazy. And that's what an ending is supposed to do. Plenty of people think that endings need to be like twist endings. But no, oftentimes it's about falling action. Puns.
But I think the strongest...
It did great.
What the finale did really well was that the battle started an episode earlier. I remember what you'll see in the reacts. My friend Abby said, or in my excitement for things to start, Abby was like, no, you got to be patient. He's got to find the swords. You got a whole episode. And then later that same episode, all of a sudden, Cole whips out swords and performs some of the best fight choreography we've ever seen in the episode before the finale.
Yeah.
And so having everything epic spread out, even if it's the last 2 episodes, helps with the pacing, which has been issues for many finales.
It's what happened with the Ice chapter. Like, it was split into the last 2 episodes. Same with Jay and Unagami. He got out into the real world in the very last 11-minute episode.
Yeah.
But, like, if this was old school Ninjago, that stuff's condensed to the last 22 minutes.
2 minutes, which is what this season held.
Yep.
So I think that's what really made it strong. It was just continuous action in the finale, and we got closure at the end for Vanya, the low or the Upley, and for the kingdom itself. So I thought it was very, very well done.
Tommy again, the true fall. There's an episode title.
Oh, come on!
Cole must fall
Give
again.
Cole a break. I'm kidding. Don't give Cole a break, because that's when he gets interesting stuff to do. Is when
That's true.
Don't make him actually break something though. Like
Yes.
arm, because that would be sad. But
Honestly, that's my ending summarization, honestly. It's classic Ninjago, but mixed with the production values of modern Ninjago, and a strong emphasis on character, both with your main cast and your secondary cast. And that's why I think this season rocks so much.
nice puns.
Unintentional.
So you two have basically said where this falls on your list for how you rank the seasons. I'm proud to say that Master of the Mountain is now my favorite season of all time, which
Rip
means
Skybound.
it outdoes Skybound and it outdoes Sons of Garmadon, partially because I love Cole so much, but also because this season hits at all the story beats that I'm looking for in an Ninjago season, and it hits it completely, like, flawlessly. So I've rewatched this season already so many times amidst my editing for the reactions, and every joke still lands. I'm still laughing editing these episodes over, whether it be Zane throwing rocks or Mert doing his recap, or Cole doing little punches and then saying, wait, what do I do? Or him saying, what, the magma monster is going to be here. What is it going to be doing? Just staring at a wall, and then instantly in slow
I forgot about that. That was funny.
Classic comedy.
I
I forgot that, to say the comedy. Like, it was all wonderful.
comedy in this season, like Prime Empire was funny.
It was.
Ice chapter was funny, or Fire chapter was hilarious, but this season was absolutely hilarious. I felt like all the comedy hit, which is sometimes not the case for Ninjago because it is made for kids, but it was, like I said, flawless.
How the heck did they balance, like, good characterization, personal stakes, a race war, and genuinely funny comedy all in, like, one season, not have something be sacrificed? Like, usually something doesn't work.
You think something is missing,
But it all works.
It all, like, we even got, like, the deep, sad backstory and whatnot from Cole. Like, we got the darker moments. We got that dark, like, I don't say it's darker, but it's the sad
personal
moment with Cole and Wu, when Wu comes out and says, like, on your feet, Cole, and whatnot. Like, we get scenes like that, but we also get the super hilarious scenes of Cole mocking a villain, or the ninja debating over which face to look at with the Skull Sorcerer.
Or Zane and Kai having, like, a 1.5 minute long debate about the slugs. It's like, that's funny.
And in a Lord of the Rings reference gone wrong because Zane doesn't know what he's doing.
Yup.
So
Tommy asks, any guess on who is acquiring the Venge Stone? We had a bunch of guesses. We went through all of them, all the possible candidates.
We're thinking Garmadon through his fake name, that he presented in season 2, but I don't know where he would get the money for it. Pythor maybe, but where would he get the money for it?
I mean, Hayley, it's not like these people are working 9-to-5 jobs in order to make the money for it.
See, I could totally picture Garmadon being like working at a desk job trying to raise funds to defeat the ninja again. Like, that's funny. Like,
I'll tell you who
all combed with glasses and whatnot.
I'll tell you who I want it to be, but I don't think it will be. I want it to be Ronan. Not to be a villain necessarily, but like that seems like the kind of thing he would want to have a lot of for his own purposes. You know, all of his like equipment.
We haven't seen in a while.
Yeah. Fujidove.
Fujidove.
Oh snap! It's Fujidove.
Or maybe the what's it called? The prison is buying it and making all of their bars out of Vengestone to keep elemental masters within. But
listen, all I'm saying is there have been a lot of Nauticon references.
Yes.
They even mentioned the teapot this season.
Mm-hmm. So
maybe. I don't know.
Maybe it's Nauticon. If it's Nauticon, can it please be a Nia season?
Honestly, a Nia season fighting Nauticon would be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
I would be totally cool with that. Because that is the case. Now that we have had a Cole season, Nia is the only person to have not had a solo season. She always shares focus with Kai. Possession was hers technically, but it was not marketed as such. It was marketed as more like, oh, Cole's a ghost, or Lloyd because he's been possessed by Moro.
Mm-hmm.
She was never been at the top of the box by herself.
Even though she was the one that saved the day. So.
Yeah. Which I kind of liked about Possession. Possession's another one of those seasons that I don't like it because of the ghost inconsistencies, but I liked it because everybody got something to do.
Didn't we determine that the ghost inconsistencies weren't inconsistencies?
There's a reason that can be inferred to work well, and it's enough of a good explanation that I'm like, all right, cool.
Fine. Like,
I can accept that. It's like the Skybound.
Weird. So.
The me of today likes the Skybound ending, but the me of yesteryear was like, it undoes everything. It sucks. So like opinions can change over time.
Mm-hmm.
But that is that's all I really have to say about the season. Aside from the biggest thing we've saved for last.
Yeah. Like I think we've covered the plot, we've covered the minutia of the actual show. But for one of the first times in Ninjagocast history, we're gonna have to take a look at the sets because
This shouldn't be the first time.
It shouldn't be.
I mean,
I like Ninjagocast to be like a show that focuses on the actual show.
I mean, I get that. In my opinion, though, we should absolutely. I'm just giving my thoughts. I don't run this show anymore, but I definitely think it would be good to have episodes in the in between seasons to discuss sets. And anyone who wants to talk about Ninjago sets, it can come on Ninjagocast.
Yeah, if we have ones that are like set specific, I think that would work out quite well. The reason why it's never been done before is, like X, he always says this. It's like, well, I don't want to talk about the story. If you guys talk about the sets and the story, then I'm going to be lost. But like if we section it off, it could maybe work out well.
Yeah.
The reason why the sets are going to be discussed is because of inaccuracies, and normally that's not a big deal because there have been many instances in the past where sets do not mesh with the TV show. Many of them. Big one, just an example right out the gate, Tournament of Elements. There are sets in that wave that have like regular Anachondri people and then the cultists side by side. You have Pythor as a villain who's big fighting Nia in her stupid truck thing. And if you watch the season, not only could that never have happened, but Pythor was an ally. Yeah, you have liberties that are taken here and there, but there's enough of them to where it's always been kind of a thing that's bothered me. But this season is particularly special, and I would like to clarify that when I talk about this, I'm not saying that the sets are bad.
Far to the contrary. These are one of my favorite waves of Ninjago of all time. Not counting the movie sets, which are on another level. It's kind of hard to compare those to TV show sets. But the designs here are great. The vibe of the dungeon crawler kind of atmosphere is epic. The problem starts to come when you actually look at these sets in detail. So I'm just going to use this one as an example. I'll post it in the chat. 71717. This is a set, if you're following along with our discussion and you look at this set, the problem should immediately become obvious. This set pictures Jay in a cage, and Lloyd is having to fight Mert for one of the Blades of Deliverance and to save Jay from the cage before he gets lowered into lava. The sheer amount of things wrong with what I just said, based on what we've just been talking about, like, that is not a thing that can happen. Number one, the blades never even showed up until the end when Cole found them. Number two, Mert isn't a villain. He's an ally. Number three, Jay was never in a cage. That's the more forgivable one, because I'm like, okay, it's just a plot feature. He was in a cage. Okay. I mean, all the ninja.
In a cage with all the ninja in a cage, yeah.
Yeah. So. That's a play feature. I can look past that.
Yeah.
My problem is that if you look at all the sets in a row, you don't necessarily need to flash to each picture, but like every single set, the Munce and the Geckos are the villains. Wu is fighting Gleck. Zane and his Rhino is fighting Gleck and Ginkle. Like all of them, they're portrayed as the bad guys. The actual Skull people only even show up in the biggest two sets, the Skull Sorcerer's Dungeon and the Skull Sorcerer's Dragon. So what clearly happened was they were like, we need conflict in a box. We need to do X. We need to do Y. And it just somewhere along the line wasn't accurate at all, and you kind of have to wonder what could have caused such a thing to happen. My theory is maybe that initial concept art had them as the villains, like whatever these sets were based on early in the production pipeline with design. Maybe they're like, oh, then it's like D&D, and the ninja have to fight against these creatures underground, and that's the gimmick of the season. But then only later on, as the show took form, where they're like, no, these people are innocent. Maybe the initial pitch was that they were being controlled or whatever and forced to fight against their will, or mind controlled by the skull. There's tons of reasons to justify it. But you do run into an interesting question where you have to say, what is the purpose of the Ninjago show? And if your answer is the purpose of the Ninjago show is to advertise the sets, I mean, as good as this season is, in that view, does it not categorically fail? Does it not fail its intended purpose? Maybe it's transcending that purpose, and at that point, that's a discussion worth having. About the sets just being used as a springboard into the show. But if the sets are the core of the theme, which I know we've discussed many times in the past with Lego, sets are the core because of the product.
Hold on. True. A little variance there. Yeah, it's hard to say. Grant, it's hard for me to really give a perspective on this because I haven't ever intended on buying any of the ones from this season. Like, not because I don't think that they're bad, of course. They're really good. It's just they're not really my style, my theme. Like, there are other Ninjago sets that I'm interested in getting hold of that are just not from this theme. This this season, Master of the Mountain. So it's really hard for me to say, oh yeah, it's because XYZ. Because I never had that intention, and so the show didn't sway my perspective one way or the other.
Yeah.
I think what's most telling is, do you remember how way back when Lego product descriptions would have like from Bionicle sets, remember they would call out like play features they'd be like, Tahu, leaps into action with his triple-bladed spinner and Ninra Ghost Blaster, stuff like that.
Yes.
Stuff to highlight the play features of sets. Well, Lego set descriptions they're kind of like that now, but they have changed on Lego's website. I'm going to just read to you the very first line when I go to one of these sets on the Lego.com website. Kids can recreate thrilling scenes from the Ninjago TV series with this Journey to the Skull Dungeons playset.
Yeah.
And then they go on to talk about the minifigures. And they're like, this super cool playset can be both a toy dungeon for recreating scenes from the Ninjago TV series and a board game for kids to navigate their way past the ninja traps and spiders to free an imprisoned ninja. But here's the problem. Only one of those works. It's the latter one. It's a self-contained conflict in a box playset. If I am a kid who is watching Ninjago as a commercial, basically, a glorified commercial for this product line, and I watch this season and I'm like, that was awesome, Mommy, can I get a Ninjago set? I want to recreate blank. And I go to the sets, there's like one that's actually going to be able to do that. And every other is like a construct.
Or say you're a kid who watched the show and you loved the like communion between Kai Zane and the Geckos, and you're like, oh my gosh, I loved the Geckos. They're so awesome. I want to buy look at the sets, and you see the ninja attacking the Geckos.
And the Geckos have like evil faces. Their faces look like terrifying, like they're monstrous.
They're evil. It's like, wait, no, that's never in the show. The Geckos literally never attack the ninja. They put them on trial, but they never attack them.
They're the most innocent, like harmless.
And same with the orcs, or not the orcs, the Munce. The Munce. So it's disappointing in that front. That
here's a picture from the box, Wu's Battle Dragon, that shows the Geckos. They look evil.
And they're accurate, but they're evil.
That doesn't like jive. I know it's just presentation and printing and whatnot. But like as a kid, I would actively like walk away from that, and that's not even like I'm tiptoeing around the biggest one.
Yeah, we'll get to the biggest one later. That one's more of like what it could have been rather than what it is.
That's fair.
But the one thing that I can maybe think that this is they're avoiding spoilers, which is like think of like Avengers set that are making sets for Infinity War and Endgame.
Don't compare the Avengers sets.
well, they don't want to announce that the Geckos and the Munce are good guys before the season even comes out.
But like that's not a plot spoiler. They're introduced as that.
It introduces that in the beginning, but it's one of the, I don't know. I went into, when I watched the teasers and trailers, I thought they were going to be the antagonists as well, and I was happily surprised that they weren't.
You only knew that because you saw the sets first.
Yes.
Set your expectation, but what if you didn't?
If I didn't, then I probably would have been even more disappointed with the sets.
Which is exactly the problem.
Which is the problem.
All this is very interesting to me for a variety of reasons. First of all, a couple of Tommy messages in the chat. Is that let's do a call to discuss the show versus product development / integration sometime. To that, absolutely, that sounds like a blast. And he says, glorified commercial, we are fine art!
I agree.
Ninjago is interesting because they've evolved past commercial for Lego, and now their show feels like it's running the sets rather than the other way around.
And this is why this has always been very interesting to me, because from the perspective of someone like myself, who of course is a Bionicle fan, and I feel like anyone who works on Ninjago who listens to Ninjagocast and hears me say that must hate Bionicle by this point. It's like, oh, here we go. Another Bionicle mention. Yep. So the reason I'm bringing it up this time is because of the philosophy between those two themes and how it's influencing my thoughts on this particular subject. So Bionicle was a very character-centric theme. You didn't get large-scale sets with different characters. Like, there's one set that was released in 2007 that has 4. That's the most you got out of anything. Usually you just had the one character. And so when it came to the story and how that character played into the story, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what the character looked like most of the time because you didn't have any additional context. You just had a character, and then you got to see how that character worked into the story. You got that set, and you see, all right, how does this set work itself in? How is this going to work? What are they going to do? And after that, canonical concerns only really mattered in certain instances outside of the year. Like, what did Tahu Mystica look like when he got out of the Matanui robot in 2010? He looked like Tahu Mystica, lo and behold. Like, what does he look like now? He looks like Tahu Stars. Does Tahu Stars look like Tahu Stars, or does he look like Tahu Mata from 2001? You know, it's that kind of a thing. But it's very minute. Most of the time, you had a character.
Matters to high affinity
You
fans.
just confused so many people.
I
can tell you that
understand.
Right now.
My apologies. Just look up Tahu Stars, which was
Yeah,
released
just
in
look it up.
2010, which is supposed to kind of sort of look like Tahu Mata, released in 2001.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of uncertainty there. But my point being, you have these character sets, and their canonicity only matters so far as to whether or not they appear and how they appear. And you're interested to see how they appear. So when I look at Ninjago sets, I don't care about their canonicity because they still have the characters, they still have the scenarios, the situations, and what the sets and the show do is they play off of each other in a very interesting way. So I'm looking at this wave, and let's say I did want to recreate something from Mountain, shoot, I forgot the name of it.
Master of the Mountain.
Thank you. My goodness.
I
Master
didn't know
of
what
the
you were
Mountain.
trying to do, like Mountain Shintaro?
Yeah, no. So let's say I did want to recreate a scene from Master of the Mountain. And let's say I wanted all of the swords. You know, I wanted both Swords of Deliverance, and I want all of the ninja, right?
Mhm.
Okay?
Yeah,
So
so
I'm
I-
gonna need to get the castle. I'm gonna need to get Skull Sorcerer's dungeons. And then I'm gonna at least need to get Wu's Battle Dragon. So I get the other swords. Now I have both swords. And then I'm gonna need to get the Skull Sorcerer's dragon. And through that, I should have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, I get all the ninja. I get Wu. I get Vanya. I get the Skull Sorcerer. I get some skeletons. I get...
But you don't get the lowly. That's a big one too.
Well,
We're getting there.
okay,
I have more to talk about with that.
Yeah.
We have more to
Let's
discuss
finish
there.
this podcast.
But see, my point to all of this is, I'm looking at these Ninjago sets, and from a canonicity standpoint, I mean, yeah, the no single set is canon, technically speaking,
Yeah.
but they're all partially. And if you have all of them, well, then it doesn't matter anymore because it's all there. Everything gets incorporated, even if the advertised instances aren't shown. But we're not looking for the advertised instances as a source of story. We're looking at the story. The sets are just components of the story, and we're just acquiring them physically because they're super cool. And to me, the interesting part is seeing a super cool and well-designed set like Wu's Dragon, which isn't Wu's Dragon, it turns out, or like the Firestone Mech, and seeing how they work in the story and not really being worried about how the story works for the sets.
I think that approach is very well suited, but I think it only works for high affinity users.
I mean,
People
I
who
guess.
are already, and that for anyone who doesn't know what that means, I mean people who are already Ninjago fans.
Yeah.
People who already know the kinesthetic link between the show and the story. People who have the money to buy like $180 to $200 worth of sets to replicate one scene.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people who are invested enough to do that. And I think that when you have people who are not invested to that degree and you're trying to get those people in, you're trying to treat each Ninjago season as an entry point for new people. That is the expressed purpose of the 11-minute format, the soft reboot, the change in title. That whole thing was to act as, you know, jumping on points when your product and your advertisements aren't having synergy. I think there's going to be a discontinuity there. And I think the results are going to unfortunately speak to it.
But I don't know if there is that lack of synergy. They're synergizing. They're both existing. They're both technically the same thing. It's just if you're into the show first and foremost as a new person, like a new fan, and you're interested in the show and you're like, now I want to go out and buy a set. Well, hasn't the show done a really good job now because it's encouraging you to buy more sets if you want to do recreations?
That's an ideology, but that's not the ideology that I would first have.
I mean,
my first one would be I don't want to buy any sets because they're all fabrications.
Yeah.
I want sets based off the show I watched, not sets based off a mythical product that doesn't exist. Which brings me to part 2, the characters that are show only, which Ninjago has always done. This isn't new, but this season has perhaps done it the most. The lowly are not minifigures. King Vangelis is not a minifigure. The Shintaro Royal Guard are not minifigures. Shintaro has no sets based off of it. The Geckos base, the courtroom, no sets based off of it.
We don't have any spiders, right?
No spiders at all. The Munce hideout, no sets based off of it. The show literally feels like it's a completely different thing with half of its cast not even existing in product form.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, when it's happened in the past, it's stuff like the Postman or Dareth or Misako. One-off characters, singular people who were probably not put into sets because they didn't work with conflict in a box. But when you have your whole season derived around people and unique designed characters who don't exist as products, and the new characters that do exist as products don't fit their established roles, like, there's no way that's not a problem to me. I don't know how big of a problem because I'm not a sales analyst and I'm not responsible for doing, like, you know, focus testing and focus groups about, like, you know, market research and whatnot. But it is something I would keep in mind when evaluating. Like, if I could offer any advice, it would be that.
Same. And I don't know.
Tommy raises the key question: is canon or playability more important?
And
100%. It's playability. But kids will only want to play scenes that they know.
I do.
If they are show viewers first.
Nope. I
like,
100% disagree with that.
If I watch Mask of Light, the Bionicle movie, Eljay, and I see the Toa versus the Rakshi, my first inclination as a kid was not to go buy the sets so I could have Tahu, the villain, fight the good guy Rakshi. I wanted to act out scenes where the villains are fighting the heroes and they're doing, like, things that I can do, play functions that I can be like, oh, maybe the Rakshi team up with each other and maybe they go fight the Toa. Maybe the Toa get knocked down the Mator and have to go save them. That was my play.
I have an example. I think we'll go to the most extreme one here. I want to go and buy a set of Cole's mech because I thought that was absolutely outstanding. It was absolute, like, that moment with Cole having his own mech. He was able to drive it and everything. He got magma all over it. It looked awesome. I go to the store to buy that mech, and the majority of it is Kai. That,
which is a complete
and Cole doesn't have any other sets to his name. He doesn't have any other moments that are like forever ingrained as a set for Ninjago. Zane has a Mino creature that he rides, which he did once. Wu has a dragon that he rides into battle, which was accurate. We have the Skull Dragon, we have the dungeons and everything. But Cole's mech from the show that got magma on it, which looks awesome, was transformed into a mech for Kai.
Which I don't know why the only logic I can possibly infer is that early concept art had like a half red and half gray mech, and the set designers just took that and ran with it as like, oh, it's a ninja hybrid, and they were just never like informed about what that actually was supposed to be. Because that is like in the show, like I don't know if we ever specifically mentioned it, the mech destroys the lava monster and half of it gets burned.
Yeah, it gets covered in magma and it looks awesome. But
which in the story it's damaged. As a toy, it didn't have to be damaged. That could just be, oh, it's Cole's element. You know, it's magma, it's lava. As a toy, they decided to make it a team-up mech.
Yeah.
And I see a bunch of people in the chat, you know, they're echoing Eljay's, you know, dismissal of that ideology about, you know...
No, it's not it's not a dismissal. The thing is, like, I get your perspective. Like, yes, kids are going to want to recreate scenes they see. Absolutely. I was there. I did that. I recreated moments in Bionicle all the time. You know what else I did? Not that. I also just played with them as normal toys, making my own scenarios and situations that were kind of fun. I mean, that's why I so heavily emphasize my love for 2001, because a lot of my own scenarios were just me filling in the blanks, because that was fun. My thing here is kids are going to just play with them no matter what. Yeah. And sure, you can say, you know, some of them are going to want to recreate. That's perfectly fine. Some of them are going to want to make their own stories. Should the show really hinder the play and build process of the sets?
I say this as somebody who loves this season, and I love what they did with it. So don't take this the wrong way.
I'm taking it the wrong way.
But think for a second, put yourself in a cold corporate position.
Okay,
and
back in 2017.
And you're looking at the show and why it's worth investing money into.
Okay.
Is not the purpose to advertise.
Yeah, and because Yep, and so the show has gone out. Say, if I'm in a corporate position... all right, we got this great show that a lot of kids really seem to like. It's really, really getting them interested in our product, and it's pushing them out to go and buy our product. Okay, so product designers, if you could just, like, split these situations out a little bit so that it encourages people to buy more sets so that they can recreate their favorite moments, that'd be great. Awesome. I love this show. It's done a really good job advertising all these products.
Well, number one, the grouping of minifigures and expensive sets, that's a common ideology, and they do that for a purpose. That will never change.
Yeah, I know.
It always does LEGO action themes. It's to encourage you to buy bigger sets to get the full collection. That's not the problem. The problem is that the play scenarios, like, you don't start with the making of your own stories, because that's up to personal imagination. Like, I don't see it as one invalidating the other. If LEGO made accurate sets, that does not invalidate your ability to do your own thing. But LEGO making inaccurate sets does invalidate your ability to recreate scenes.
No, it doesn't.
They're doing it in the wrong order.
No,
See,
no.
And people are telling me that's what LEGO is all about. But, like, if that's really what LEGO is about, they wouldn't make, like, these play features at all. They would make, like, a box of parts, be like Ninjago Dungeon Pack featuring X amount of minifigures. You know, like the Minecraft crafting box, be like, build your own scenario.
Those aren't one-to-one comparisons, though. Minecraft is entirely catered toward making your own thing. So a box of bricks makes sense for Minecraft because there isn't a story to follow. Like, you're just building things. Like Ninjago, these sets aren't supposed to give you scene recreations. They're supposed to give you parts of the story, and you get, well, okay, the other way around. But we're going into this as though the sets are supposed to supplement the story instead of the other way around. Like you're going into this with these sets that are snippets, they're bits, they're parts of a whole. And obviously, like, if you're interested in having the whole, like for us as Bionicle fans, we were really big into collecting. We wanted to get them all because gotcha, Pokemon. You know? Like, I wanted all the masks. I wanted all the Tomata. Dreams come true. With this, you know, you're encouraged to go and get everything because then it's a super impressive whole and you can, of course, recreate everything, right? But you don't have to have these picture-perfect cutout scenes from the show in order to have good products entirely.
I feel like we're mixing up the need to get everything. That's not relevant. Buying everything isn't relevant. That's not relevant to the point I'm talking about. If you buy everything, of course, you and your creativity can change it up and make a bunch of differences. Oh, the biggest two sets, coincidentally, are the only ones that have the actual villains. So yes, if you have everything, you can just stick the Munce and the Geckle minifigures, out to the side, have them be like in a cage, and you can just have all 6 ninja and Wu and the dragon fight like the 3 skeletons and the Skull Sorcerer. You could do that, and technically speaking, it would be accurate, but that does not solve the problem that we're discussing.
Because so what's the problem?
Is it just box art then at this point?
Essentially, yeah. But
It's just when you go and you look at the shelves and you see a Geckle versus a ninja. Because, I mean, technically, you are right, both of you, that you can take the minifigures once you have it and be creative with how the show actually presents it. But the more, like I made the point with the Firestone mech, there are some things that I feel like have been lost in communication between the people who do the show animation, the people who make the sets. And so that when it clashes, it fails to represent such a huge moment. And like I said, lack of having something for a ninja whose face is on the box, like have his own thing, feels kind of empty and broken. And the fact that like we don't have an Overlord dragon, even though that's such a big moment in Ninjago, and we still get Lloyd's Golden Dragon. Sure, that's the good person's dragon. We got that twice now. And inconsistencies about, like you mentioned, Pythor being on an enemy side when he could have been, well, I like I said, conflict is interesting on a box because they have to have conflict on a box to sell. So I understand why they would put the Geckos and the Munce on an opposing force just to sell something.
Like it's not that this has ever been a problem before. Like we're having this debate about like making up your own stories and whatnot, acting as if actual Lego sets can somehow hurt that. And like people in the chat talking about like, making your own adventures, adhering to canon, etc. But like that's never been a problem in the 9 years of Ninjago before. People have been perfectly able to do that just fine. And the instances where the sets break canon have been comparatively minor. I call out the Pythor example. That's one minifigure.
Yeah.
In a wave of what, like 7 sets that were more or less accurate, like cultists aside. Like, sure, it may not have made sense from the story that there would be cultists and Anacondrae side by side, but they were both Anacondrae. They were both villains. A kid probably won't notice the difference.
I guess another example could be the Oni Titan from season 8 and 9. It being visually very different, set made, and of course glowing purple in the show.
Like those minor issues are there, and I mention them because they're just kind of interesting to talk about. But I've never dedicated a section to a podcast to explaining why they somehow like break the continuity between like marketing schemes, because they haven't. They're fairly inoffensive. This is a different level than that. This is like on a whole other tier. And I think the reason it's either concept art, like I said earlier, or it's just because if you think about it and you think through history, there's never really been an instance in Ninjago where there was a whole like group of people who the ninja were supposed to protect. if you really think about it.
Oh,
There's never been an instance like this to this degree. Sure, there's regular humans,
yeah.
but never like whole enemies, species, factions, characters. It was probably fairly easy to say, like, well, if we don't have them be the conflict in a box, what do we have as conflict in a box? Just the same black skeletons every set? And that would be boring. You're not gonna ever hear me say that wouldn't be boring. And I can't even call it a flaw with the story because I love the story that they told. It just there is a problem when the sets you receive don't link up with the marketing meant to market them. A more extreme example of this would be March of the Oni. We had 4 episodes for March of the Oni. And if I watched March of the Oni and wanted to go buy a cool thing to like
Yeah.
represent that,
There isn't.
I could I guess buy the coal car, but then I would have to get a giant stone
There are
warrior.
sets for March of the Oni.
Yeah, there were set concepts from Legacy that were integrated in March of the Oni, but March of the Oni was intrinsically story first. That was a moment where the story represented the core of Ninjago.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, I'm bringing this up one more time because I'm still very hurt. I can't go buy a Cole set for this season. Like, I want to go buy a set for my boy Cole, who got his first season ever, and he doesn't have one.
Tommy says, I actually agree totally with Tyler, but there are some other very obscure practices at play. I do like how box art can obscure plot spoilers, though. I mean, fair enough. I sit on my high horse and I say what I think, but I'm of course not knowledgeable about the behind the scenes logic.
I mean, we're only we're discussing in the realm of the outside thinking in.
Yeah.
I can only throw my hat on the ring. At the end of the day, the sets are extremely well designed and the show is spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's Armageddon scenario. I just fear in the future, if so long as we are kind of trained to think that the sets are the core and everything else is just marketing, there might eventually build to like a bigger discontinuity than this, unless Ninjago somehow flips it and makes the show the core.
The thing here is really it really depends on what you're valuing overall. Like with Bionicle, I obviously value, like, I grew up on the set, so I wanted them all, of course. But I value the story greatly. With Ninjago, I like some of the sets, but I value the story more. Does that make sense?
It does.
Like, at this point, like, I'd like to get some of the sets, and at some point I think I kind of want to get that new Monastery and the new Destiny's Bounty, maybe. But A, I don't have space for them, and B, like, the interest is there because I like Ninjago, and those are some of the most poignant parts of Ninjago's iconography. I think that sentence is grammatically accurate.
It is.
Cool. Like, to me, those are to Ninjago how the Kini Nui in Bionicle is to me. Like, to have a set of one of those things, that's holy grail material in my eyes for those respective themes.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm totally in a similar boat. Like, I'm definitely, if I had to say, for Ninjago, I'm a story first fan, and the only sets I would consider buying are ones that represent like really cool subjective moments or really cool, theme representative locations or vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I voice critiques like this, I'm not so much speaking about myself, because like I'm not gonna buy the sets for the conflict in a box. I'm buying a select few, and it's because they're skull themed, and I'm gonna love them. It doesn't really affect me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of people who it might affect and go from there, but that could totally be wrong. Because I'm not an 8-year-old who like plays with toys, so I don't really have that opinion anymore. I lost
there's
that.
anything wrong with that. If there are any 8-year-olds who somehow managed to watch us, it's cool.
Yeah.
Also, full disclosure, this video isn't aimed at you.
Yes.
Just so you know.
It's not.
I doubt any 8-year-old would listen to 2+ hours of.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Hey, maybe it's a very smart 8-year-old. Hello, very smart 8-year-old.
Hey, wait, no, we do not believe that there are any smart 8-year-olds watching this. Okay, YouTube, we don't. Cop off of us.
This is made for all ages.
No,
Keep the
it is.
coppers off.
No, this,
So
is,
once
this is
again-
made for adult Ninjago fans only.
If at any point you do want to do that call, Tommy, I'm more than happy to go into more detail. I can hash stuff out. I'm just one voice in the cavalcade of many, but I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I am just concerned.
Well, you're stupid, Meso. No.
Maybe that is true. That might well be accurate.
Yeah, and of course, like I said, I mean, I think the sets are super great. I like the show a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is my corporate LARPing. It's like, well, the show has done a brilliant job of advertising our product. Consume product, be satisfied, and stand by for the next consumption wave.
Consume.
Consume.
I'm not sure how many of their fans are out there like me that I don't buy a lot of Ninjago sets. I only buy select few that I feel like are from big moments of the show. Most of them are buildings or bounties. I only have one bounty, but only like moments that I can have that reminds me of, oh, I love that moment from the show. For this wave, I'm considering buying every set but the Firestone mech.
Dang, brutal. Savage,
Yeah,
brutal.
Same way.
Very savage. But honestly, that like, as much as I want to buy it because it's great, but like the whole season was great. I love the aesthetic of the whole season. I think the aesthetics of the sets are amazing as well. So that this season is definitely a buy for me. But I just hope we don't see those inconsistencies in the future, and that's my ending.
Certainly not to the scale of the Fire Mech. Like,
yeah, definitely.
The rest I can at least understand.
Mm-hmm.
And,
the mech is very hard to understand.
And in all fairness,
Yeah.
like, I 100% agree with you on the Fire Mech. Like, that is really egregious. And it's also the kind of thing that would have been pretty easy to define. Firestone Mech, yeah.
Just make it transparent.
Magma Stone mech.
Well, I mean, either make it transparent or at least remove all of the weird symbols. Because the issue with it, in the show, it looks like melted rock. And in the set, you can almost kind of get that across because the builds on both sides are pretty similar. The problem is, all of the red stuff has gold highlights on it. It's got these symbols and illustrations
polished.
To make it seem like it's Kai's side, and it was manufactured and not because it was, damaged.
Yeah, exactly.
Sakota's like, buy 2 Firestone mechs and you get extra pieces and build the stone mech. I'm like, that means I have to buy 2 Firestone mechs.
It also still doesn't work because there's some parts of the center that are just permanently red, and they also have some symbols.
I'll have to paint over it or whatnot, or look at the.
You basically have to do complete surgery.
Yeah, I'm not that great of a Lego master, so.
Oh, but you're not that great of a Lego master. So you're a Lego master? Is that it? You're just flexing over us now? Okay, I see how it is.
Yeah, just flexing.
Fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So. So, but yeah, it's interesting to see how Ninjago has grown. I'm sure it's rivaling the whole like, okay, who's marketing who at this point? Are the sets marketing the show, or is the show marketing the sets? So,
I mean, I think like technically it's definitely still show marketing sets, but there is a trend towards the opposite happening. The more the show goes and does its own thing. And I mean, Tommy even mentioned earlier in the chat, like stuff like Lil Nelson. I'm like, yes, that is an example of the show becoming more independent, for better or worse. I think for better.
Yeah, no, I think
absolutely for better.
I like that the show is independent. I would also love to see, what are they're called? The lowlies, the uplies.
The lowly and uplies.
Okay.
Yes. We could have like a mystery pack for just Ninjago characters that never received a minifigure, because there's so many of them that we want.
Yep.
Like that's where we are right now.
Where's my
Which is
collectible minifigure
amazing.
series?
Wait, collectible minifigure series for Ninjago? That's a crazy thought. So
That, however, honestly, I've reached the end of my road.
yeah,
That's basically all I got. This season absolutely rocked. It basically
had to say it again.
it superseded my expectations basically every way. Is it the greatest season? Hard to
Yes.
say. I feel very strongly about a select few others as being like cream of the crop. But I imagine if I rewatch, I might like. I don't know. I feel like the writing is equal, kind of. It's mainly just production values that might tip the scales. Because current Ninjago is far better than even the Skybound area in terms of like visuals.
Yeah.
But the Skybound area had a bunch of compelling characters and stuff, and Nadakana is a better villain than the Skull Sorcerer.
Yeah.
So it's tough to say. But regardless of personal subjective rankings, it is in the top hierarchy. And I'm very glad for once that I am not a contrarian saying I hate something that people love.
And it's a coal season. Can you believe it? You all laughed at me like a year ago.
I mean,
that coal season would just be horrible.
I did.
There was reason for it. But
I apologize for nothing.
but I will say I am pleasantly surprised. I am incredibly happy. I'm not only happy because I got to watch something that I thought was very entertaining and very and quite well done. I'm also happy for people like you that were really looking for something like this. They were really holding out for a coal season that was really well done. And not only is it a coal season that's well done, it's a season that's well done. Like everything, like the A game was brought. I have very few complaints. I enjoyed it. It's definitely in my top 5. This was a really good season. And I'm happy.
I am happy that I do not have to be a jerk to Tommy and Braggy for once.
Yeah.
I'm glad I could just be like, good job, well done. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bow at your feet and say thank you. Not only for this, because having a coal season has been begged by the fans for years now. Ever since Zane got his season, we've been begging and begging and begging for this. and I'm guessing maybe you're like, oh, fine, we'll do it. And I mean, it's honestly it's like I said, it's my favorite season. So thank you. From the bottom of my cold loving heart.
Next up, Nia season.
Now it's a Nia season.
Actually, I need a season about core grid.
Oh my god.
That's what I need.
Ronin season now.
Oh yeah, Ronin season. All right.
I'm very happy. Well, Eljay, you wanna do the plugs again?
Wait, no, Tommy with the inspirational comment. You will always be a jerk to us. I can't tell if that's like.
I'll take it, Tommy. I'll always be your jerk.
I mean,
well, I'm not gonna be a jerk anymore because you.
No, just know that I do it with love.
Yeah.
Listen, man. Some of the things we said during the Chima years, I don't think we're living those down.
That leaves scars.
We were harsh kids, so
just know I am totally down for a Chima continuation.
No,
bring it back.
Continuation to Nexo Nights. I want to see.
Yeah, no. Chima ended where it needed to. Nexo Nights, we need the end.
I love more Nexo Nights.
Yep.
So.
All right.
I think that's it. That's all we can do.
That's it. You got some pluggaroos, Eljay, before we wrap this up?
Yes. All right. So thank you all so very much for watching. Hopefully you were entertained by this, and hopefully you will leave your thoughts in the comments below as to what you thought about the season. I'm tired, guys. I'm sorry. It's been a long week. Leave your thoughts below as to what you think about the season, or over on the TTV message boards at board.ttbchannel.com. You need to be 13 years or older and follow our rules. You can join in the conversation. Additionally, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/ttbchannel. Lowest $1 a month, and you can join our Patreon Discord server, as well as our Minecraft server, where you can explore the islands of Matanui and Voyanui, with more to come. Additionally, Twitter, at the TTV channel, at Messinac, at the Eljay Johnson, that's JOHNSEN, and at private.call. Go ahead and check that out, and yeah, that's really about it.
That's about it. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us on this long adventure for season 13. Thank you for sticking it out for all of us. Definitely look forward to us returning for next season. We'll be doing a lot more Ninjago discussion podcasts on top of doing Ninjagocast reacts. So you've got a lot to look forward for that. And
It'll be just like last time, week after week of over-analysis of episodes, leading to lofty hopes and broken dreams.
Okay.
Please go to a Netflix format eventually if you can. Please. Releasing all the episodes super fast is awesome. Anyway, that's all.
See this in high def quality first. Anywho, that's a discussion for another day. So yeah, that sounds about it.
All
Hit
right.
the music, LJ. So thank you again for joining us. We'll be back soon. But until then, I am Sensei Wolf.
Barely even hear her.
Yeah, it's because of Discord. It's cutting her out. Say it again.
Sensei Wolf.
I'm LJ.
I'm Meso.
And hope you all have a very ninja day. Hey,
Oh
you
my
two,
God.
we're still on for D&D after this, right?
Oh yeah, I gotta roll the dice.
Roll the dice. Choose another path.
Choose another path.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.